We're here. We're doing it. Hey, everybody, welcome back. MaxBet Podcast here at Blackfire, UNLV. Go Rebs. We got a big one today.
Yes.
I feel like it's a big one. It's big for me.
I'm very excited. I'm excited because I've been hearing about this woman for many, many months now. And so I'm very excited to finally get to
Her
talk.
name's in the title. We can just say it. It's Diana Bennett, right?
Yeah.
Chairwoman, CEO of Paragon Gaming. So for those in the casino business, that they operate multiple casinos, I think mostly Canadian at the moment. Big history there. Also the kind of leader of the Bennett Family Foundation, big philanthropic person, giving back to the community in multiple different ways. I'm pumped. Also, just kind of a firecracker of a personality. Like just a fun lady to talk to, somebody that has been, very successful in multiple different ways, but just talks like a regular person, which is nice. Like, I don't know what I expected or what I expect, meeting her, but it's kind of like,
She's got the power.
she's
the
got
experience.
time. She's got
all the excuses to be able to
swagger.
be that way, but
this is what fangirling feels like. I feel
Yeah.
like I just fangirled over her.
It is.
This is fun.
you did a really good job too.
Thank you. I try to keep it a little bit under control, but not totally. So maybe I'll have her sign something. But
Oh God, please don't.
don't do that. All right, we'll skip that. All right. But anyway, I am pumped to talk to Miss Diana Bennett, and so let's jump in. Diana, thanks for joining us. Really, really honored to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you and Hillary, and I'm ready.
Yeah, perfect. I was telling Hillary before, and I mentioned this to you briefly. I said I'm excited to have you here because I said it's rare that you meet somebody whose family literally changed my family's life. For us, like in the late '80s, early '90s, my family moved here, and that's when your father, William Bennett, he hired my old man and gave him a chance as like a new up and comer, and that changed 10, 15 years worth of career just on that. So you grew up in back when it was still the Wild West.
It was.
So do you have any cool old Vegas stories that we can tee up the people with? Or?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because when my dad and Bill Pennington did take over Circus, we were just kind of finishing the mob days back then. And there were several connected individuals that had jobs within Circus, largely because of their relationship prior with Caesars and Jay Sarno. And so the ice cream parlor, the candy shop, these were all run. And I can remember coming in and seeing these very elegantly dressed men behind the counter of a candy store, and the one guy would always give me candy, and I used to say, Dad, he's so nice. He's like, don't even get near him. Don't get near him. So sure enough, my dad had to, oust them.
Wow.
The FBI notified us that there was a hit put out on my father. My father was brilliant, but he was also sometimes kind of stupid. So he bought himself a white Cadillac convertible with pink interior.
Like you do,
Yeah.
Obviously.
When you're on the circus, it's kind of normal, I guess.
And was driving up and down the strip with several of the executives from the hotel, and they heard gunshots. And my dad swerved, crashed into something. It was just a car backfiring.
Oh, really? Yeah. No gunshots. Yeah.
No gunshots. I think he got rid of that car. I think it made him realize that, this was like, here, kill me now.
What a great target.
So that one wasn't so good. It was a really interesting time back then. If you go to the Mob Museum, you spend time there. It's like, oh my God, I knew that person. I knew that person.
That was the ice cream guy. Yeah.
Yes.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But my dad was the first one to come in and say, okay, we can run this like a business.
Sure.
Because when we lived in Arizona, he ran several furniture companies, and until my mom died and he had to file bankruptcy when I was 13. The thing that he really valued, and your father was probably a really good example of that, was you treated your employees the absolute best.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd walk through that casino and he could mention everybody by name.
Yep.
And his executives, he's the first one that put in really a big bonus program. That your salaries weren't that great, but your bonuses more than made up for anything that he did. And he created, you look at Mike Inson and Mel Larson and all these guys that were there in the beginning, and he truly changed all of their lives as well.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Just tying off on that car story. I never had a hit put out on me, but I think anything sounds like a gunshot at that point. Some kid pops a balloon. It's mob days, right? Yeah. No, that is interesting to come in and now take over like a business, because in the mob day, I mean, I wasn't there, but you watch the movies and it's kind of like we're just doing enough to get money out for the family to go do their enterprise or whatever their illicit behaviors are. And now you're going, well, that's not the goal anymore. The goal is to make an actual P&L and make some money, right? And so.
Well, and it used to be pretty funny. You'd be in the count room, and the count room would have the lowered ceilings with the panels.
Yep.
And that's where money would just get put.
They just stuff it up top.
Stuff up there a little bit during the count, and
couple bills here, no big deal. Yeah,
exactly.
It's interesting too because I mean I don't know how much this is true, but it felt like everyone had a little hand in it, right? So you're going, casino, I don't know, I'm just going to make up numbers. Made $1 million, but only 800,000 ever made it into the books because everyone took a piece, right? It just seemed like it was just a different time.
Yeah.
Where everybody had their hand in it, and
my
put it in
dad
the panels. Yeah.
did not do that.
Yeah.
There would be no more hands. He figured he paid everybody well.
Yeah.
Just really set the lines. But his timing was really good because that was being felt up and down the strip. So it wasn't just that he did that.
It wasn't just at the circus or at
Right.
the New Excalibur. Yeah. Was there anything like that sticks out that he had to really correct from like a casino operations perspective? So obviously taking away the people that are, sneaking it out the back door, fine. But like just from saying, hey, the way they played the games they offered, was there anything just on the casino side that he goes, listen, as a business, we can't do this anymore?
Well, a lot of it when he took over Circus was all the arcade things he had to clean up. I mean, they had the chicken dancing on a hot plate. You'd put a dime in,
Wait, what?
and the chicken would dance because there was a hot plate underneath his feet. Yeah, so it was like, okay, I have to get rid of
I've never heard of
all of these really, really terrible things. He learned about slot machines when he worked at the Mint with Vinnie Binion, who was next door. So Vinnie Binion really taught him what he needed to know about slots because he'd been a player before my mom died, and then he was a casino host, and then suddenly he was assistant general manager of the Mint, then he was manager of the Mint, and then he was manager of Sahara, and then he was manager of Valdel Webb, that in 3 years.
Yeah, wow. Jeez.
He used to stay in the garage. We had a 21 table in our garage, and he would deal to my brother and I.
Yeah.
So not because he wanted to be a dealer, but because he needed to see, how people reacted. And back and then, when you had a high roller come in, sometimes they would demand my dad deal to them.
Right.
And
Really?
you would never see
That's amazing.
anything
Yeah.
like that. But there he'd be back
Can you
there.
imagine somebody coming in now going, hey, Hornbuckle. can
Yeah,
you deal with
exactly.
cards? Like,
Hey.
what? I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
That's
But
pretty wild.
it was just really small. Or the time my grandmother came to visit and there was a slot machine that was out of order and it was just paying a whole lot of money. So he put my grandmother on it and let her play because she said she never won.
Yeah.
And then after she played, he put the machine down. But yeah. So little things like that you could get away with back then.
That'd be wild to see. I guess the only one that could do it now, I mean, unless you're getting down in the pit and dealing from your chairwoman
No.
office, is like maybe Derek. I could see Derek at Circa coming out and doing the dice pit or something because he's a big craps player. But yeah, the days of
Yeah.
the owner dealing cards is
Yeah,
out. It's
I don't think
completely
Gaming
outrageous.
Control Board would be too happy with this.
Yeah, fair. I guess there's more rules now than before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your dad, and I'll just kind of segue this, like he ended up being fairly generous with his staff. That's certainly my dad's recollection. It sounds like a lot of folks had good careers and lives after that. Does that influence on you then? Because I think where I'm going with this is like you might be one of the biggest philanthropists in Las Vegas, I would say, maybe broadly. I don't know the whole portfolio, but did that behavior of his inspire you to be so giving? Or I guess what has motivated you? I mean, you have the Bennett Family Foundation, which does quite a bit of charitable giving, which we'll talk about here in Las Vegas. Where did that come from? Before we talked about what you're doing, like why are you so giving in this? Because it'd be very easy, I'm guessing, to say, look, we made all this money, great. I'm just going to go sit on an island somewhere or fly. I don't know what the people that don't have to work do, but like, some sort of like much easier life that you don't have to care about people that are facing hard problems. You don't have to care about the next generation. Like, where does the motivation to help come from, I guess, is what I'm ultimately trying to figure out.
People say I'm, do things under the, you
Yeah.
don't really know. My dad was always just didn't want anybody to know what money he was giving. And he only gave to things that caught his attention. If you came and asked him for money, then most likely he was going to turn you down. But there was an example when a police officer was killed. He anonymously gave $100,000 to the widow. One of the funniest stories was he worked very closely with UNLV. He was calling there one day because they sent him a bill for $5,000 for training his marketing staff from the College of Hospitality. He called, talked to the then president of the university, Carol Harder.
Oh, yeah.
And so he said, I can't believe you guys sent me a bill for $5,000. Everything I've done for you, and you send me a bill for $5,000.
Yeah, right.
And she said, Mr. Bennett, I'm really sorry. I'll take care of that. You don't have to worry about paying it. And then he said, well, I understand you're building an early childhood education center. And she said, yes. And he said, well, how much is that going to cost? And she said, $5 million. He said, fine, I'll send you a check for $5 million.
Yeah.
She said, Mr. Bennett, you do know that this phone call just cost you $4,995,000.
Yeah.
And
But it's the principle.
And he
Yeah.
said, yes, but that's my decision.
Right, yeah, fair.
And so I started out, I was a working mom. My whole life I've been a working mom. And my daughter got quite sick with a brain tumor. And it took us 3 years here to finally get a diagnosis at UCLA. And so I spent time in the pediatric ward at UCLA, and I was like, this is amazing the way they take care of the parents of these kids and everything. So when she was finally doing well, I came back and I went over to UMC, and they had a foundation. And I said, I want to join the foundation. I said, you're not going to get me because you think you're having my dad's money, because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, right.
And I said, and I don't have a lot of money, but I said, I'll sell hot dogs. I'll do whatever you need to do.
Sure.
You know, so I started with the UMC Foundation and eventually got to be head of it. Then when my father died, and there was some more money in what was then just the Bennett Foundation. And unfortunately, I didn't get that money when my stepmother died, so I had to start my own. And I was happy to start my own because I think the city has been so good to my family
Sure.
that you have to give back, you know, and it's not for the notoriety. It's, you know, I meet with students, I meet with patients in the hospital, whatever I have to do, and I don't want a camera there taking
Sure.
pictures of me. I just want to meet the people and see that I can do some good. All the scholarships we've given to the School of Medicine, and these kids are graduating with no debt.
Yeah, that's
They can become a doctor in any field they want to because they don't have to worry about, oh, I need a high-paying one.
Yeah.
And then they all say to me, because of you, we're going to give back when we get established. You've made us realize how much philanthropy helps. So those kinds of things are what's important.
Is there follow-up to say, hey, you know, some of these folks did go into, I don't know what you want to call it, like lower earning fields or maybe more charitable medical field, like some, I don't know if Doctors Without Borders is an example, like that comes to mind where it's like, hey, now that I don't have $250,000 to pay off or whatever
Right.
the student loans would be for a doctor, I can do the thing I probably signed up for.
Yeah.
Because I do think you talk to a lot of folks in, call it first responders or medical fields where they're like, look, I really did the help. They want to be helpful, but then they're like, but hey, life's life. I still got to pay
gotta
off all
pay
these
it.
bills, right? So like at
Exactly.
some point you're making these hard choices where now, hey, maybe not.
And the goal really is to keep these medical students here.
Right.
But a lot of them want to go to small towns where they grew up, that there
Yeah.
hasn't been a decent doctor. You know, they have that opportunity. They have a variety that they can choose from now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you could probably measure a lot of your direct benefit or like impact that you've had. Hey, I've given X here, this program done. Like, you know, we were at the Golden Apple and I know you support them. And it's like, well, they put, you know, I can't remember, but like it was thousands of students get school supplies through this public
Yeah.
education foundation that we were over honoring Bo over the weekend.
It was like 144,000.
144,000, like these students didn't. So, but then how many do those students help, right? Like, and that's the interesting part to think about is say, like, you're starting to give, and then that giving just extrapolate. Pretty wild. I wonder how many, it's probably a really huge number of people you've helped over time that you probably don't even know about.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure I don't, because the work we do with Noah's House. My son used to be a cop at the airport, and he's retired now. But he sent me a picture one day of a little tiny, tiny chihuahua. I mean, like this big.
Oh, yeah.
And it had been left in the ladies' restroom at the airport. And it had a note that said, hi, my name is Chewy. My owner's being abused. She's running away from a bad relationship. She can't afford to take me on the plane, so we're really hoping somebody will take care of me. So my son sent me this picture. I'd never had a chihuahua in my life, but I fell in love with this little tiny thing. So I said, I'll take him. And he goes, Mom, I'm really sorry, but one of the officers is going to take him home, but he has to go in and be checked out with the vet and all that stuff. So he called me the next day, and he said, the officer can't take him. He needs a series of MRIs. He's got a huge knot on his little head. So he said, I'll take him. Then I got a call from Stacy Alonso, who everybody knows is Shade Tree and Noah's House. And so she said, Diana, there's this great story that's going to happen, and there's this chihuahua that was left at the airport. And I said, I know all about it. She said, you do? And I said, yeah, I'm taking the dog.
Yeah, I'm the one that.
And she
how
goes,
great
we've
is
gotten
that?
over 1,000 requests for the dog. And I said, well, don't use my name. Don't just, you know. And Chewy was on Channel 3 News. He made it in the paper in London. He made it in the paper in Vancouver. This I've got a
Yeah.
picture of him with a NBC collar on.
Is that, yeah.
And it was great because the fact was we could tell people, you don't have to do this kind of thing. And I always hope that somehow that woman found out about Chewy's life.
Yeah.
Because that was 7 years ago. He's just the sweetest little guy in the world. And he's not a typical Chihuahua. He's just a lover. But, you know, the vet is like, I don't have any other Chihuahuas that are this sweet. I think everything he went through, he's just, you know, so grateful and such a fun little guy. But
Awesome.
that's more getting that word out there. You don't have to run away with your dog. You can go there. They'll take care of you.
So let's just pause on that so people understand. So we're talking about Noah's Animal House here. I mean, this is more for Vegas, but I'm sure there's partner organizations in other states or localities, right? So
Very few.
really?
We built one in Reno.
Okay.
We were working to build one in Phoenix. As far as I know, there's only one other one. Part of the reason is that those kinds of opportunities for women are built on a small piece of land. They don't want anybody to know about it, so that the person who's
Yeah, you don't go stock
can't
the
go and
facility
stock
or
it.
whatever.
So very few of them have land. At Noah's house, we were fortunate that they had plenty of property there, and we found the same thing to happen in Reno. But Stacy has gone everywhere trying to get more of these built, and it becomes an issue of land because they have to have their own house, like Noah's house, and then the family members get to go play with the dogs or cats or whatever it is, hamsters.
So the animals are at the shelter, and then the families who did surrender them, they come and visit them. Like, how does that work?
So this is the house where they're being housed,
Yep.
and that's the shelter for the dogs. I mean, it's just walking distance across a yard.
So they get to be in the same area as
But
their
they
animals.
Can't, yeah, so can't take the dogs into there. But
Yeah.
they go spend time with them, and then we have volunteers that, walk the dogs and cats and play with them and all that kind of stuff. But and the women can stay at Shade Tree for up to 2 years to really get established. That dog or cat is with them, the whole time, and with their kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, is Noah's house relatively new? You said it was about 7 years ago, or how long have they been?
Noah's house, I think, has been around probably 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
It started because Stacy was on the board of Shade Tree,
Yep.
and a woman came in totally beat up with her cat and wanted to come, and they said, well, we can't take your cat. And Stacy heard about it and then went out and said, I'll take your cat. I will take care of your cat until you get back on your feet. And from that, she started a whole network of people that would foster the animals while the ladies were in there. And then we were able to raise the money and build Noah's house.
That's awesome, yeah. So then did you follow kind of in your dad's methodology then in terms of like, hey, this caught your eye, so I support it? Is your style just saying, hey, I saw somebody needed help, so I jumped in, or did...
I try to be more business aligned, but I'm not really good at it. I started with Three Square because Puna Mathers and Julie Murray, along with Eric Hilton, founded Three Square. And they asked me to come in one day and just take a tour. You got to fall in love with Eric Hilton. He was just a big sweetheart. We were losing the only food bank we had when Eric Hilton got involved. So that was kind of a no-brainer. But I immediately was attracted to the kids' backpack program, which is every Friday the kids get a bag. It's not really a backpack anymore, but it's a bag that's filled with all the essentials the FDA says they need for a weekend.
Got it.
And then when you hear what these kids are doing, I had one little girl, I went to one of the schools, so I talked to this girl, she was in 4th grade, and I said, well, what do you like in the backpack and what don't you? And she said, well, we get white milk and we get chocolate milk. And she said, and I always give the chocolate milk to my little brother because he really likes it. And she says, and I use the white milk for my cereal because Mom won't buy cereal because she says it's too expensive. And she said, we usually get canned fruit, and I give that to Grandma because she doesn't have all of her teeth.
Oh, wow.
And he says, sometimes we get stew, and no one really likes the stew, but it's really good. If we don't have dog food, we feed the stew to the dog.
Oh, man, yeah.
And so she's giving up this thing that is supposed to feed her for these 2 days, and she's so proud that she's sharing it.
He's like, I get a little milk and cereal, and everybody else gets
and everybody
the
else
rest of
gets it. And, I mean, she was so proud of that. I was crying, of course.
Well, I'm getting a little misty-eyed just listening to you tell the story. So, no, I can imagine living that would be wild. I think what surprises some of us that maybe live in the bubble a little bit is how readily people, like, there's so many more people that need help than you even realize.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
You might not think this little girl exists, and you may go, oh, she got her back, she's going to go eat really well for 2 days. And you're like, well, no, actually, she's got 6 other people that don't eat either, and they're going to all share the...
And we have a tremendous amount of food insecure people in the valley.
That's what
And in many of them in areas that you don't even think about. We tried Three Square supplies food to all the various food banks. We don't distribute food directly from there. We distribute it to the partners. But we have a lot of areas where there's not really a small church or something to do this. And you think, well, that's a good area over there. That's a good area. You have no idea how many people are just barely making it, or how many people are living what is known as homeless, but it's because they have 3 or more families living within one house. And of course, during COVID, it was really bad. But everybody reached out. Everybody worked together during COVID. And you don't want to lose that momentum because those people are all still out there.
What did you guys do during COVID?
Three Square did their own program with, fortunately, the government, and everybody was really willing, and there was a lot of people that volunteered to take food. Then Elizabeth Blau, Puna Mathers, and Julie Murray, they started a program, Elizabeth making food in her restaurant. It gave her an opportunity to keep her people employed. And you could go get takeouts, but we were also delivering those meals to a whole list of women that were food insecure. And then there was about 10 women that weren't on anybody's list somehow, and Julie called and said, we have 10 women we can't take care of. So one day I packed all these little bags and got in my car and driving around to all these neighborhoods. And these women were just so excited to have somebody bring them food. My family wasn't that excited that I was going to a trailer park on Boulder.
Well, it's funny because I was sitting here going,
Times, yeah.
well, what's so amazing is how much you're personally involved, not just saying, hey, here's a check, good luck. It's
Yeah.
like, I'll drive the food over, or I'll take the dog. Or
I
whatever.
did. And then my son was like, okay, Mom, tell them you're bringing a cop with you so they'll feel safe and I know you're safe. So he would go on the route with me, which we did that for over a year.
Nice.
Just taking care of those ladies until we could get them into other programs.
A little mother-son bonding doesn't hurt either, right?
It
Get a little
doesn't.
family time. Yeah.
We haven't talked about
Okay.
UNLV.
Well, UNLV is where I'm going. So I want to bring this to the Rebels. That's why we're here. We're Rebel Podcast. We're at Blackfire. Where I most recently got, I don't say introduced or reintroduced to you, is through this program that you're now launching called UNLV Empower Her. This is focused on helping the Lady Rebel athletes. Let's help you transition from the world of competitive sports to the world of like competitive career building.
Harp asked me to go to lunch one day. And he said, I have an idea in my head. He goes, I really don't know how it's going to work. NCAA athletes, less than 2% ever make it into pros.
Yeah, for sure.
And less than 4.9% of females make it into pros.
Yep.
They're dedicated. These are really hardworking people, but they get pulled away from their education a lot, obviously. They're in sports. And UNLV does really hard to keep all those guys where they're going to get a decent grade average. But what they don't get is anybody telling them, okay, you're going to do an interview. Let's talk about how to do an interview. Somebody asks you to go to dinner in a very fancy restaurant. Do you know what the forks are and what to use? And how to be not insecure, how to write a resume, how to be in online, and what you should show online and what you shouldn't. All of those things, these guys are just kind of devoid of. Mm-hmm. So we started it in the first 2 years. It's just been juniors and seniors, and then it'll eventually be freshmen all the way through. And as in many of my programs, we try to get those that are older and have been through the program. We want them to help mentor those people that are coming in. I did that at the Honors College too. So it's giving back while you're getting really a lot of stuff for yourself to move forward, rather than just graduating and go,
Yeah.
what am I going to do now? What am I qualified for?
That's how it goes.
We help them figure out, okay, what do you really want to do? If you don't make it as a pro, which we never tell them you're not going to make it as a pro.
You're probably not. Statistically, you're
yeah.
unlikely. Yeah.
But if you're not, what interests you? Are you interested in sports medicine? Are you interested in being an agent? I mean, there's all kinds of things that are associated with sports and entertainment that, you don't have to play on a professional field. And the women came out. We currently have 29, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot in women athletes at UNLV.
First cohort, yeah.
And several men joined our first lunch and said, we want to be a part of it. And part of that problem is you teach women some things differently than you would teach men. Mm-hmm. There's many of the classes that could be for either. I had a really interesting conversation with Keith, the president of UNLV, and he said, if this program keeps going the way it has, not only are we going to try to get some man to make an endowment, like I made an endowment for the women, but he wants us to take it to the Mountain West Conference and get it throughout the Mountain West and then have it take off. And it's not the same as boosters that used to just, give money, and of course you can't, and everything's NIL now, so they do get, but it's feeding them as a human being to exist. Now, I'm not going to just give you a ton of money and have you crash a fancy car. I want you to be able to go into a job that you can be proud of, that you're happy with where you are, and you're confident in what you're doing. And those are the most important parts.
Yeah, that makes. I mean, I know, Hillary, you did a big piece for that group with like social media.
I loved that everyone was super excited to be there. Like, they were very involved, and they were all like cameras on, they all had questions, but it's a selective group, right? It's not everyone gets in.
Right.
They have to go through some kind of like application process
Yes.
to get in. We just went over like, how do you have a LinkedIn profile and what does it look like to be online in 2025? What should you post on your personal that, could resurface later on? You have to be very aware of like the presence you put out there. I mean, they've grown up with this internet and with social media,
Yeah.
so they're very aware, but the rules that nobody else has really spoken about, especially when it comes to professionalism.
We have Elizabeth Blau. She's going to be doing a class. We have an HR specialist that's going to be coming in to talk to them. Quite a few people that want to go to financial literacy.
Yeah.
Because that's so important. And all of these kinds of things that just make them more self-assured about themselves when they're not doing the sport.
You mentioned earlier, as you're saying, hey, we teach girls things differently a little bit sometimes than the guys. Like, what's an example maybe to the former football meatheads like me that maybe don't always appreciate that point? Like, what are some of the things, like what topics or what things, how do you do it differently? Like, where does it become, hey, this is kind of a ladies' class, let's leave it for them, versus, hey, we should sit on everything or not?
Whether it's fair or not, there can be times you put yourself at risk.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're not going to tell a guy, well, you don't want to walk home at, midnight, and well, you might want to tell a guy that too, but
Risks exist, but it's different.
it's different. And you want to make sure they always protect themselves. And then the same with their social media.
Yeah.
What do you put on social media and what don't, so that you're not going to be at risk of somebody with nefarious plans to come get you.
Yeah.
There is.
So
there's
it's
a
like the
difference.
laws of the jungle still apply a
Yeah,
little bit, right?
they do.
Like 5'2" drunken female, probably more of a target than a 6'6" drunken gorilla, right? Like that kind
Absolutely.
of thing. It's just a little different, right? So that makes sense.
I think it's also, safety for sure, but it's also the optics. Women, you're under a microscope much more than the men in the office or the men in whatever company you're in. So you have to be extra careful and extra cautious of your actions and what you're doing and just what could possibly be getting around. So it's unfair, but it's the reality of what
It
you
is
have
the
to
reality.
do.
Back when I was 20, it was like a gauntlet every day.
I'm sure, yeah. And your dad ran the place.
Well, I didn't work for I
Oh, okay,
tried for
yeah.
a really long time not to work for my dad. So we started at the Flamingo, and then I got married, had a child, needed to go back to work. I did work at Circus for a while. But no, I worked 10 years for Mike Ensign with his properties.
okay.
So I really tried not to work for my dad.
So were you one of the only females in that
Yeah.
setting?
Oh yeah. I was in sales and marketing at the Flamingo. This is when all the people from Flamingo went over to the International, Kirk Kerkorian. So there was an organization for the sales people of the Las Vegas area. It was all men. They wouldn't allow me to go.
Oh, wow. You couldn't even go.
Couldn't
Not
even
that you
go.
were the only one. No, you weren't. Yeah, zero.
And then when I became the first slot director, female slot director, every year during the big gaming show, the big slot manufacturers would throw parties, typically at a strip club or something like that. So I would get my invitation like 2 days after the event, so that, oh, did you not get your invite? Yeah, no.
Missed ya, Crazy Horse
yeah.
last night or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I went through a lot of that, and I would go to the HR department and say, this guy, he just won't be. You should be very happy that you're in the position you are. Most women would love to be where you are, and that would be the end of the conversation.
Jeez, that
Wow.
is...
So, and I always had to just be smarter than the men,
Yeah.
and I was.
Obviously.
That probably wasn't
Where you
hard to do. Yeah, jeez.
Yeah,
That's,
I figured
worked
out ways
out.
to get around it.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's like an
crazy.
infuriating response, actually, to me, to hear
I-
somebody say that.
Yeah. I can't imagine dealing with that every day and then sticking it out. Like, how many years did you do that?
I was married once, got divorced, and then I remarried, and so for the next 7 years or so, I raised 3 kids. But then when I got divorced there, I really needed to go find a job. It kind of started all over again. Like, I was 34, and two of the guys put a press release out on me that Diana Bennett, 54 years old, has now started, like a typo, but it wasn't. It was like,
Yeah, it's like a hazing, kind
yes,
of a public
exactly,
haze. Yeah.
exactly. So like, oh, okay, so
world.
funny. But yeah, I mean, long into my 30s, and I was working for Mike, I had a man come up and say, "Who'd you sleep with to get this job?"
Jeez.
Wow.
It's,
Seriously, I'm just a little marketing director right now.
yeah, good ideas. Why is it so hard to believe?
Why do I
Yeah,
have to
geez.
do that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no,
wild.
it was bad.
Well, times are changing, and I think hopefully they've come a long way from there. Maybe we're not all the way healed, but inspire the next generation to keep fixing some of these things, because I can tell you, there's no more strip club parties, official ones anyway, and
No.
most of that's gone.
No, I think
They're
it's much
slipping their way
better
up, yeah.
now. But I've addressed groups of women on this, and it's not just in gaming. I've had lawyers
Oh, I'm
tell
sure,
me, you know,
yeah.
but it's much more out there now. And if you do file a complaint, something
I'll take it
happens.
seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, so you spent time, you mentioned, as a slot director. So
Mm-hmm.
we normally do a thing here where we say, like, give us a fun gambling story. I know as an owner of a casino, you don't gamble yourself, but do you see any wild stories while you were there, big jackpots or just fun?
We had a funeral once in Las Vegas, and all the funeral people were coming, and they stopped at the Gold Strike to have dinner. And this woman was playing Megabucks, and she hit the Megabucks jackpot that was
Wow.
like 15 million.
Jeez.
And she was crying and laughing and crying and laughing. She goes, "This should have happened. I buried my sister today. I can't be happy." And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
"Your sister would be thrilled, you know." But it was so hard. You have that money, and then you just don't even know how to
Short
react.
circuits your brain. Yeah, that's amazing.
And then a good one at Excalibur opened, and we had a $100 slot machine. And so it's opening night, and that damn jackpot hit for $100,000. I get the phone call from my dad. "I understand you're paying off a $100,000 jackpot." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "How the hell did we get a $100,000
Yeah.
jackpot?" And I said, "Well, it's a $100 machine. On a dollar machine, it would have been $1,000. $100,000."
Yeah.
And I said, "We are in the gambling business." And he said, "No, we are not in the gambling business. We are in the gaming business, and there is a big difference." I'm like, "Okay." So I switched that jackpot down.
Denom down that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Thanks, Dad.
Who would you recommend to come on the podcast next?
It's interesting. I'm contemplating writing a book, and I'm working with Jack Sheehan. He wrote the book about my dad. He wrote a book about Perry Thomas, Don Snyder.
Oh yeah, Don. Yeah.
When you're talking to Jack, is that he has more stories sometimes than I do. So instead of writing my book, I think I'm writing his.
Yeah.
And he has amazing stories about Las Vegas
Yeah.
from long ago.
That's awesome.
And I think he'd be a really interesting person.
Perfect. I love
Yeah,
it. If you
I
don't mind
love that.
introducing us, we'd love to
No,
have him. Yeah, that'd be
I will
perfect.
take care of that.
For people wanting to get involved in any of the organizations you're a part of, is there any like direct links or like what do you need right now within the organizations you work with?
Well, the one thing that I tell people is that you don't have to give money to work for an organization. They all depend on volunteers.
Yeah.
And so people who think, well, I don't have money to give, I can't give. Yes, you can. So 3 Square, you call and say you want to become a volunteer. They'll put you in a program. Noah's House. UNLV might be a little different. It's not quite that easy. But,
Yeah, sure.
but if there's something that you have an interest in,
Right.
there's probably a foundation for it. And all you have to do is call and say, "I want to help."
Yep. Let's get out there and help people. That's what we want.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us. And
And hi to Bruckner.
hi to Bruckner. Hey, Steph. Yeah, thanks for setting this up.
Thanks
Very
for being
good.
here.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
And now, the segment where we make it up as we go.
Okay, if you had to choose, what would be a terrible slot machine theme? Like you're making one, how do you make it the worst ever?
I think you'd have to come up with content that no one would find appealing. You'd be like,
Yeah.
You know those videos that are super annoying where they come on and it's like, so they're trying to raise money to feed
Oh, like
Arms of
Arms
the
of
Angels.
an
Yes.
Angel.
And so it's like, and they come on and you're like, good Lord, like I get it. Like I'll just give me, there's a $10. Like,
Black
and
and
it's
white
the same
video.
lady. Did you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, at that point, there's no math model saving that. I don't care how good your Huff and Puff math model is or your Arist or whatever. Buffalo,
Yeah.
like you're not Arms of the Angel in this thing back.
No. What if they did like a Taylor Swift slot machine, but only the sad songs?
It's like, that would probably not
It would-
be the right strategy, but yeah.
No, I'm saying like it'd be
I
a
know,
bummer.
but here's
Like
the
you'd be
thing.
so excited to go to a Taylor Swift slot machine and you go up and it's like, we're only gonna play the 10-minute Taylor's version of All Too Well songs. You have to listen to the whole thing through the bonus round.
Here's what I've learned. You put a sad Tay-Tay slot machine out there, I bet it still hits the Eilers report. I'm just saying. Like, I want to believe what you're
Honestly,
saying.
I would play it.
I'm with you.
I
Like,
would play
in
that.
theory, I'm with you.
Well, the whole thing would probably be like teardrops falling,
Oh, yeah.
and then like guitars
Sure. And
underneath,
when the teardrop hits the guitar, you win.
and then you win.
That's her whole.
But like you gotta hope that it hits your guitar. Money maker. You just
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
get the licensing.
That would be hard.
That would be hard. She would want a piece of that for
I
sure.
don't have an in on Travis. I have nothing. So unfortunately.
That's really disappointing.
All right, so no sad child slot machine. Maybe a sad Tay-Tay slot machine.
What about like middle child's fortune? Nobody wins. You get on it, it's like, it's just angsty, the whole thing. You just feel like a vibe of like irritation, and you never win anything.
Just that would be, yeah, these are all pretty terrible ideas.
What's an idea that you would want? What's like, you walk into a casino and you see that machine and you're like, I'm on it. That's what I want to go to. And it's never been done before.
Wow, I feel like we've done so much, it's hard to think of never been done. Maybe
Okay.
a Wu-Tang. Have we done a Wu-Tang slot machine?
You're asking the wrong person, but sure.
That could be interesting. Like
Yeah.
something I'm interested in outside of
Yeah, yeah.
gambling that just collide, where you would do like the X in the middle, Wu-Tang
Yeah.
times
All right.
LNW, and it become Wu-Tang times Huff and Puff. The pigs are all Wu-Tang members now. Can we do that?
That'd be fun.
Drano's coming on soon. We get that going.
I would want like a millennial nostalgia machine. The whole screen is like AOL Instant Messenger.
Like the interface. Okay.
It's that, and then when you hit a bonus, it changes to like a MySpace page. And then the soundtrack is all
Like Good
just
Charlotte.
like internet dial-up sound.
Yes. I think you could pick some real period music here. You don't have to just give us the old like wee wee woo like from dialing up.
It is such a nostalgic sound.
Yeah, but no one wants
That's
to hear
like
that
deeply
in the bonus.
rooted though.
Yeah, but that's like the losing.
I didn't say it had to be a good machine.
Oh,
I was just
see.
saying
It's
this
back
is like,
in your ideas of crap machines. Yeah, it's funny.
but I would play that. I would play that. But then what would the wilds be? Members of Dawson's Creek like popping up.
just Joey Porter, just sitting on that. What a world would that be? Dawson's Creek. How good is that? Just somehow, but we got to make Dawson the losing symbol, like sad James
Yeah.
Vanderbeek is like,
Yeah.
oh, you almost got it. Like the near miss feature.
It's got to be like that meme face of him too. Maybe
Or that.
some like really cringy old Facebook statuses, like they just read them aloud, and that's the background noise.
You don't even win money; you just win those clips. So you bet the money, and then your prize is you get to see somebody read these old.
Prizes. You get to
old
live
Facebook
someone else's
statuses.
embarrassment.
Yeah, this is how we used to talk, and now we learned we embarrassed ourselves, so we changed our updates.
And with every jackpot payout, you get some ibuprofen. Did you also put like really cryptic song lyrics in your away messages on AOL?
Don't recall that.
Okay.
Possible. But I
Did
don't
you read
recall.
other people's though? Because it was very dashboard confessional heavy.
Yeah, big. We were screaming a lot of infidelities. All right, this has been fun. We got to shut up now.
Okay, all right.
Had fun. Thanks everybody. Like and subscribe. Check you next time.